Alright friends, what's up and welcome to the patch analysis for update 1.4. This is the full Blazing Deserts update. A quick note though before I get into it, no face cam and I sound this terrible because I am sick. So typical, I wait for the DLC to drop for months, I take time off work and just the days before the DLC comes out I come down with a chest and throat infection. But never mind that, some necromancer has cast a plague spell on me but I don't care. Let's get into it. Right, so with the Blazing Deserts DLC comes a big free update that improves the game in many aspects. Below you'll find a list explaining the most important additions, changes and fixes. Note that all of this is in addition to the many things brought by the Blazing Deserts DLC. I've already bought the DLC and the support the developers because I love these guys. Overhype are amazing. And by the way, if I go silent for a few seconds, I've just muted myself because I'm having a coughing fit. If you'd like to continue your current campaign with the previous version of Battle Brothers or continue to play it altogether without the DLC, you can do so as well. Find Battle Brothers in your Steam library, right-click it and select Properties. Navigate to betas, 1.3 branch, yada yada yada. Mods won't work, that reminds me. I went into my mods folder and removed all the mods. Let's get to the changelog. I'm most keen, wow that's a lot, it's going to take a little while. I'm most keen to look at the perk changes and do a bit of theory crafting. Added a new player banner as thank you for your continued support. Thank you. Added combat environments reflecting locations where battles take place. Attacking a bandit camp will now have that camp appear in combat, and likewise with a graveyard or some ruins. Locations may have fortifications like walls and palisades, which you'll be informed about in the locations tooltip and the engage dialogue. This is interesting, but I don't think it's going to change the way I play all that much. I've been thinking for a while that I depend way too much on that wolf helmet that gives you no range penalty at night. And then what I would typically do is I'd have my best archer wear that, you attack them at night and then you win by ranged fire. This does make me think though that I'm going to need to take that indirect fire perk a bit early on. I would typically take that much later on when the ranged fighter in question actually has some range skill. If you lower the debuff by 25% for someone who's got 50 range skill, it's going to turn like a 5% chance to hit into like a 10% chance to hit. But if you have 95 or like let's say 85 range skill, it would then turn a 40% into like a 70% chance to hit or something like that. But this now makes me think that attacking bandit camps is just going to be so much harder. I think for my next playthrough I'm not going to use that free nighttime vision wolf helmet. And we're just going to have to attack at night, be a lot more aggressive, and just experiment with those kind of things. I'm also hoping that smoke bombs in particular are going to be more readily available, because then you can probably have to face one, maybe 2 turns where you sprint all your brothers forward, ideally under kite shields, then you drop some smoke in front, move into the smoke, and the enemy's ranged fire is almost entirely negated. Thanks, Shire, thank you, Wolfster, for those few turns, and that'll give you a few turns to make choppy chop on the melee raiders, and then you can close in on their ranged guys. It could also mean that dogs are going to be more important, but again, dogs are tough because I want to start using them more in the beginning of the campaign, but they're a real financial drain, and I tend to not use them until I can actually support them. So this makes me think that it's going to take some experimentation and willingness to get out of my comfort zone. Thanks, Jodis. We're quite sick, so. Okay, added exploration mode, allowing you to start with an entirely undiscovered map. I can't wait for this. I think this is brilliant. I'm going to be starting my first campaign with that. What does this mean? I'm hoping that the cartographer camp follower can be cheap, maybe even cheap enough to be the first one you pick up, and then I want to see how much he pays you per location. What I'm hoping is that he'll be cheap enough and give you enough rewards that if you buy him as your first camp follower, that he'll pay for himself and then be into solid profit quite quickly. Sorry guys, just coughing. Added toggleable highlighting of any tiles blocked by environmental objects such as trees. That's good, that's a nice quality of life addition. Added treasure items selling for full value as possible loot for all beasts, old and new, in order to make fighting them a more profitable endeavor. This is something that the community has been asking for a very long time. The fighting of the higher level beasts especially was super not worth it. If I think of lindworms and the tree men in particular, in like 1,000-day campaign, I would only fight them in so much as I would need to get certain potions to take on the top level locations. Like fighting the trees fucking sucks. They are so lethal. They are so hard to kill, and comparatively, they don't give you great treasure. Same thing with the lindworms. They are so dangerous. They are so hard to kill. Getting through a fight without taking at least 1 or 2 deaths is so fucking hard. And then what do you get? Some scales, which is arguably is not even that great of an attachment. Yeah, personally what I really want to see is the ability to be able to buy crafting materials at an alchemist shop or taxidermist shop. Even if you make them outrageously expensive, that's fine. I mean, if these things are available in the world, they should be part of the economy. You just need to make it sufficiently expensive so that it's... If you want to do that, if you want to get full lindworm gear without actually fighting any, then that's fine. You should be willing to pay for it. And it does make me think that, like, if I want to do a Beast Hunter warband, I want to have my frontline heavy armor guys, all of them wearing full lindworm gear. And so then fighting lindworms become progressively easier and easier as you are able to give out the lindworm attachments. Okay, added a line to the tooltip of any items used in crafting to inform you of this fact, as better differentiate between crafting and loot items. Okay, if the DLC is installed, that's fine. Added tooltips explaining in more detail beforehand what is expected of a player and what they expect rewards are when choosing between ambitions. Okay, cool. Up, Jumbo. Welcome, everybody. Added Tavern Rumors about situations of nearby settlements, including some hinting at the presence of particular beasts. There's rumors specific to each of the late game crises and reduced chance of pure flavor rumors slightly. This is nice. And again, back to the beasts. What I want to do is have a run where I have enough inventory space that I can justify having loads and loads of spare weapons and spare armors for fighting particular enemies. What got me thinking that is fighting witches is such a pain in the dick. However, if you're able to get a number of, let's say, Hexen trophies and runes and sigils, and you have spare armor and necklaces hanging around, you can boost everybody's resistance by like 25. Pretty damn good. And then that can make fighting them a lot easier, to the point then where you can run them down confidently and then really benefit. Especially because I think I'm going to rely more on potions in future, because, like, especially the fatigue potions are going to be super important. You quaff them before the battle, get them for the whole battle. Imagine if you can stockpile 12 of those potions. Then before you take on the Black Monolith, you can give your entire squad plus 3 fatigue per turn. I think it is 3 or 4. And that's the kind of thing that'll take hundreds of days to farm up all those potions, and you'll need to stockpile them, so that has an economic cost to you. But it's the kind of thing that you can do once, twice, maybe half a dozen times in the entire campaign, and have to work up for it. Love it. Okay, Tavern Rumors. Added enter cursor to display over locations that can be entered on the world map, like friendly settlements. What does that mean? I hope that isn't a cheeky nerf to pulling in neutral parties into ruins to make a 3-way. We'll see. Added better and up-to-date tutorial videos. That's fine. Added no H cursor command line option for people experiencing issues with their mouse cursors. That's fine. Okay, here come the perk changes. Let's take a look. Changed 9 lives perk to also clear any damage over time effects, bleeding, poisoned, or by triggering. And to give improved defense stats until goes next turn. That is a gigantic buff. That was absolutely needed for 9 lives. 9 lives as it was shit. It was a shit tier perk. For the reason that if, let's say it's one of your frontline guys and he's in the Vanguard, he's in contact with 2 enemies, that's potentially 4 attacks going to hit him, not even counting ranged attacks and not counting polearms or other things from 2 squares away. So 9 lives would give you immunity to 1 of those attacks, but you could conceivably, especially if your brother is the brother in question, has low initiative from either being exhausted or being hit with maces, he could have to survive 6 or 7 shots before getting away, and that only gives you 1 out of those 7 shots. Let's say 6 shots. And of course, even if he survived all that, he'd just bleed to death when his turn starts anyway. So I think that's why 9 lives is so important, and I hope the removal of the damage over time. Let's imagine in my scenario you have a very low initiative tank heavy armor brother who is on the brink of death, he survives all 6 attacks or 9 lives, procs on one of those, but then, you know, he gets the defensive bonus, he's bleeding, he's poisoned. That bleeding and poison then gets removed when he has his turn at the end of the overall turn counter for that total turn. You then still have the problem of getting him off the front line. And realistically, a lot of times, the new 9 lives, I think you will just... Usually you'll be able to rotate the brother who's in trouble off the line anyway, but then as the old 9 lives would happen, is he would just bleed to death or die of poison anyway, so this is going to stop that happening. So it's a nice buff to 9 lives. Am I going to take 9 lives? No. It's a conditional, which I don't like. I like permanent perks, like, let's say, what's the best example of a permanent perk? Gifted is a permanent perk. So assuming you take melee skill, melee defense, and fatigue, that is value you're getting every single time your brother attacks or gets attacked. Whereas 9 lives only does anything if X, then X. And how often is X going to happen? Again, it's that discussion of how to evaluate the power of a perk between how powerful it is when it does trigger and what is the effect when it does trigger. 9 lives is the most powerful perk in the game when it does trigger, but it almost never triggers. Whereas Gifted is arguably the weakest perk in the game, but it triggers every single time your brother attacks or attacks. So I would argue that it's actually the best perk in the game. Okay. Relentless, to also remove the penalty to initiative when waiting with a character. Penalty to initiative when waiting. That's a little effete. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. Oh, so if this is then saying what I didn't know previously, when you wait, you reduce your initiative. I think it then, did it used to reduce your initiative for the next turn? Because, how would it affect your initiative? Let's say you start the turn, you have 100 initiative, enemies around you have around 85-ish, because it wouldn't make sure, okay, cool, confirmed, thank you, chat. Fucking hell, I need Relentless Perk. This Necromancer's poison killing me. Okay, that's a small thing. Relentless is an interesting one. It's a niche perk that I might start taking on some tanks. But, I don't know, we'll see. That's something I want to experiment with. In the past, I have been very down on perks just from looking at them at a logical standpoint. But then once you actually try them, they turn to be a lot better. Not just perks, but damages of the weapons, like crossbows. My recent, the VODs from that experimentation band where we took 4 crossbowmen. That was a real surprise. The crossbows are a lot stronger. Changed Headhunter to guarantee a hit to the head for your next attack after hitting the head of your target once. What? To guarantee a hit to the head for your next attack after hitting the head of your target once. Ooh, resets after your hit connects or if you miss your attack. So that's a buff then to weapons that already hit the head, and a nerf to weapons that wouldn't. But that's actually kind of cool. So let's assume you have a flail, so 15 base hit chance plus 25 is 40. So you swing and miss, it does nothing. You swing and hit the body, it does nothing. You swing again, hit the head, and your next chance is a headshot again. So it's just a way to have you hit 2 headshots in a row. Is it going to make me take Headhunter? I don't know, I'll have to experiment. When I took the Headhunter crossbow build, I found Headhunter to be underwhelming. Well, it would be good in the fact that you would allow yourself to switch targets, because I imagine, like, let's take a look at my crossbow build, and I shoot a crossbow, hits the body, then hits someone in the head. That guy is almost entirely fucking dead, but you can have multiple guys. Let's say in my experimentation, I'm running a peasant mob with 4 crossbowmen, all with headhunters. Then the guy who hits the head on his next turn will then hit another target that is completely undamaged, because with a crossbow, especially a legendary one, and guaranteed chance to hit the head, you're doing 75% armor pierce plus extra damage, 50 to 70 damage, unless they've nerfed crossbows. Basically, it's going to... Headhunter will allow you to one-tap pretty much anything. Any organic, I should say. Combine with QH, Quick Hand, and Axes, and enjoy the double hitting. Oh yeah, one-handed axes are amazing. And this has me think of the question that I was toying with, which maybe we shouldn't discuss now, we can come back to it, but the question was asked of me in the Discord, how am I going to build my indebted guys who cap out at level 7? And I think I'm going to build them similar to the way I'll build my replaceable frontline peasants, which is Shield Expert, Axe Mastery, Gifted, Quick Hands for some versatility, and what's that? If you swing, you get plus 8% on your next. All this cold medication is fucking my brain up. I can't think of the name of the perk. But I feel like Headhunter might be quite good for them. Adaptive Strikes, thank you. Because overall, my favorite weapon in the game is the one-handed fighting axe. It inhibits this beautiful middle ground of armor damage and base damage, so it's good against high armor and no armor guys. There are superior weapons for other scenarios, but overall, I feel like the axe is the best weapon in the game. And then potentially giving those guys Headhunter. So, fast adaptation, yes. I can see myself experimenting with Headhunter on my indebteds. Okay, change the Fearsome perk to also carry a penalty equal to 20% of the attacker's resolve, each morale check triggered by inflicting damage. That's pretty cool, so that's a real nice buff to Fearsome. The thing is, though... Mr. Ban. Iman, was that a bot? Thank you for banning. Where were we? Fearsome. So Fearsome, for a lot of weapons, I didn't think it was really worth it. Fearsome for me is most useful on a spear specialist because they have the lowest base damage. And for archers. A lot of the time, I feel like, because obviously Fearsome is only good against organics, and a lot of time, I don't feel like Fearsome would be the difference. Actually, hang on. So, because this is an accumulative morale malice, this could actually be a Lindworm killing perk. So, if you now use, and it's a nice buff to Dagger Bros. This is going to make, I think I might start taking this on Dagger Bros, because the big weakness for Dagger Bros is that they would suffer against gigantic hit point pool enemies, and this is now going to allow you to break their morale a lot quicker. I think this is a huge buff to Fearsome. I really like that. Nice. Change Sword Mastery perk to lower the threshold to inflict injuries with a gash. Giggity gash. Skill to 50%. Change Sword Mastery perk to lower the threshold to inflict injuries. That's nice. The 33 plus 33 from the previous gash was still plenty. I was routinely injuring unholds, but it's a nice little buff. The Banner Bros with Fearsome have to build Resolve. Wolfstar, are you hinting at there is some connection between the resolve of the brother inflicting Fearsome and the resolve of the person being hit by it? Because I don't know of anything like that. I think that even if your brother has 0 resolve, if he has Fearsome, it only affects the resolve numbers of the unit being hit. Okay, so Fearsome to carry a penalty equal to 20% of the attacker's resolve for each morale check. Oh wait, hang on. So hang on. So that's a gigantic nerf to Fearsome. Oh, forget everything I said. I misread. A penalty equal to 20% of the attacker's resolve for each morale check triggered. Attacks 20% of your brother's resolve to use as a penalty for the enemy's ruffle. That's what I understand it. Change resolve to carry a penalty equal to 20% of the attacker's resolve for each morale check. The way I understand that, it's worded a little... They could maybe explain that better. The way I understand that now is every time someone triggers Fearsome on an enemy, the person triggering Fearsome gets their morale lowered. But I hope I'm just misunderstanding that. And I'm just in a cough medicine and med lemon fugue state and my brain is paced. I hope you're right. So that's interesting because how is this going to affect my brothers? Because Only my bannerman goes above 50 resolve. All my other lads, I tend to leave them at 50 resolve. Yeah, thanks, Emin. That's good. So then let's assume a 50 resolve brother with fearsome will then be lowering an enemy's resolve by 10% every time he hits. It's still a nice big buff, and it's still a lindworm killer, hopefully. But we don't know whether lindworms can even trigger resolve or what their resolve numbers are. It's a big bad organic killer. I think Wolfstone hit it on the head there. Yeah, so I've got 50 resolve. Let's say my dagger brother hits the enemy raider. Raiders have what, 40 resolve? You hit him with a dagger, he has a straight resolve check, which he either fails or doesn't. Let's assume he fails it and he goes from normal to breaking, which is -10 to his resolve, takes him down to 36. You then stab him again. He has another resolve check with an extra -10, so his 36 becomes 26 and he rolls again. But it makes it better against very high morale. I think it's great. I look forward to experimenting with this because the last major, thanks to the follow Mr. Nalfungus, okay, what was I thinking? Oh god. Yes, so Damage Incorporated was the last big themed run we did on YouTube. I've been toying with the idea of doing Fear Incorporated, which the theme of it, if you will, is that every single brother is going to have fearsome, and we scare the shit out of everybody. We'll obviously be weak against undead, but oh god, Wolfster, oh fuck yeah, that's a buff to Ancient Dead. Pretty sure all of those undead have Yep, it's going to make resolve more important, but I tend to run a banner bro who gets to like 135 to 150 resolve, so it's going to be interesting, and it's also doubly why I want to try the Indebted and Peasant runs again, because those backgrounds or starts force you to have 2 guardians. Okay, so lower to gash skill, that's quite cool. That's a nice little buff to sword users. I don't think it's enough to justify sword duelist. I think really the only person I'm going to have using a sword is a tank or 2. And now pretty much in every campaign I want to pick like a chosen tank whose entire reason for being is to fulfill his destiny of holding the northern flank when it comes time to fight the Black Monolith. He's just got to be a defensive guard who's a sword specialist with a lightning sword. He runs north, he gets surrounded by like 20 enemy and he just riposts and kills them all. So then this perk change is not going to affect him, but it will make him more effective during organic fights. Okay. Change rally to cost 5 action points to use, down from 6. That's wonderful. That allows you to move 2 squares, assuming there aren't any AP modifiers for the terrain. And you can then use it. It also allows you to kill an enemy with your polearm, trigger Berserk, and then get rally off. The nice buff to rally. But this is big because Endom was a core perk that almost everybody, it was mandatory in every single build. The changed Endom AP cost to 5 up from 3. The previous cost erased too much of the choice between going offensive or defensive and allowed you to have the best of both. So what is the AP cost to swing a sword? I think it's 4. So you can still attack once and then Endom. But now this is a gigantic nerf to two-handed frontline lads using Endom. It'll take a bit of getting used to. What it means is this is a buff to tank brothers. Because let's assume in a standard 7 and 5 setup you have two specialist tanks holding your inside flanks on the front line. And then you typically will have a bunch of two-handed brothers and your dagger specialist and whatnot. But those guys won't be able to use Endom to stop things like trolls. Fuck, what are they called? God, this cold medication is killing me. Fucking the big trolley things jumping into you. This is probably then unholds. Thank you, Wolfster. I feel like I'm disabled. This is crazy. This is probably going to mean then in my typical 12-man roster, I'll have two guys Actually, what it means is then any one-handed weapon specialist should take Indom then. Like my dagger specialist can take Indom. My tanks can take Indom. My torturers who use cleavers and whips, or one-handed weapon users, they can use Indom. That's nice. And then once you have that one necklace that makes you immune to getting stunned, you can get at least 3, maybe 4 or 5 frontline guys immune to getting stunned. I think that was important. The main reason this was done was to break the overpowered... no, wait, I'm thinking of something else. No, I'm not. It was that chain of Indom, Adrenaline, Recover chain, which was bullshit and broken. I never used that chain anyway. That just felt like gaming the system as far as I'm concerned. Right, changed Adrenaline, skill to cost 1 AP up from 0. That's also the other part of breaking that chain. That was important. I do like Adrenaline. I don't have a lot of niche space for it. Typically, I'll put it on my shield breakers because it allows them to be guaranteed to act before the other brothers when they break a shield, then facilitating the other brothers. For a long time, I've wanted to experiment with some pathfinding flanking guys with Adrenaline and Pathfinder. I don't think this change is going to stop me from doing that. If you have, let's say, 16 peasants, 9 and 7, you have 2 on that flank, 2 on that flank, who will move in a bullhorn formation around the flanks. But before, when Adrenaline cost 0, they could move 4 squares and then use Adrenaline. Now they can just use 3 and then only use Adrenaline. Well, yeah, we'll see. As always, it's something I need to experiment with, because what you get to use and what you get accustomed to, you then have a bias for thinking it's better than it is. So another reason why I want to try these indebted bros. Maybe you can work Adrenaline into the indebted build, because if they're only level 7 and they are not that powerful overall, that's going to make them weaker the longer the fight goes on. So that's going to then favor a hyper-aggressive, fast attack style. So I'm getting distracted here. So Total War Troy is free. Ooh. If I play any Total War, it's going to be the Warhammer one. It's the only Total War I've ever been interested in, because I can get to play orcs and I get to make a gigantic war. Let's not get distracted. Chase fast adaptation to give 10% chance to hit, up from 8. A nice little buff. That's especially good for weak disposable brothers. The mathematics on fast adaptation is interesting, and I'm not a mathematician. I would be very interested to see an update of that one mathematician who made a Reddit post where he worked out the effective usefulness of fast adaptation. If I remember, there was some mathematic formula where he said that it only increases chance to hit by 1.8%. So, assuming there's a certain brother's attack skill level, but that's a nice little early game buff. So I'm still going to take fast adaptation on my disposable bros. And that's a nice buff. Straight buff. Like it. The change Brawny to reduce fatigue penalty from armor and helmet by 30%, up from 25. Nice. That's going to help us squeeze out an extra bit of fatigue. Changed Anticipation to always give a minimum of +10 to range defense. Anticipation I tended not to use. I've moved away from feeling like I need Anticipation. What I find now is Anticipation is not needed on the frontline lads, because if enemy ranged guys are a real threat, the frontline guys are using kite shields or have heavy armor. It's the backline that needs Anticipation. And it's not that hard to get someone to 20 range defense. 20 range defense plus the penalty from being behind a front line tends to make enemy archers shooting at you at around the 30% mark. Excuse me, sorry guys. Oh god. Bear in mind the new guns though. I think also this is a good change because it's going to help a lot of different play styles. For me, the introduction of guns and their power is largely not that big a deal, because I'm moving away from crossbows back to pure bows. And having 2 godlike bowmen means that in most situations, I say most, you will shoot the enemy gunmen down before they get close enough to shoot you with 1 or 2 shots. But again, it's something I'm going to experiment with. But again, then if I am taking anticipation, what perk am I going to drop for it in favor of that? We'll see. So changed knockback skill to have a fatigue cost of 20, down from 25. Knockback, that is the pokey poke ability on pikes, which I almost never used. Problem with knockback, it doesn't do a lot of damage. Knockback is really only useful on like a pitchfork, which has crap damage. Whereas if you can knock back someone to take a fall damage, they'll take more. So, fine, whatever. Changed repel and hook skills to fatigue cost 25, down from 30, that's fine. Again, I very seldomly use knockback, repel, and hook because 9 times out of 10, I would rather just do the damage than do that. Change split shield, skill to trigger the overwhelm effect. Well, this would have been fucking useful on my last experimentation run. I wonder if the developers were watching my experimentation VODs. That was one of the key things, and one of the key reasons that overwhelm wasn't worth it on overwhelm light armor, overwhelm high initiative tanks. This now makes them a lot better. Thank you, Conductive. Yes, good point. So then so knockback is a shield perk. Knockback, typically these days I tend to use as a protective measure when I want to get a wounded brother off the front line. So it just costs a bit less fatigue, so great. And then is it going to be 20 minus the fatigue, 25% fatigue cost of shield specialization, so you can get it down to 15 with shield specialization. Very nice. Split shield, triggering overwhelm, very nice. This will be good on disposable brothers who are shield experts and axe experts. But then again, overwhelm, unless I see buffs to overwhelm, I'm not a big fan of overwhelm. I think it's a very weak form of card control. I mean, lowering an enemy's attack by 20%, that's great. They can still hit you though. If you take a weapon, disarm them, they can't do damage. If you stun them, they can't do damage. So, we'll see. Yeah, so changes to a bunch of injuries. Changed exposed ribs, stabbed guts, grazed kidney, deep chest cut, deep abdominal cut injuries to have more of an effect, including reducing hit points of the victim to certain thresholds if currently above. In essence, those injuries are now a bit more useful for the players who inflict upon enemies, and both the crippling strikes perk and the gash skill indirectly buff this way. This is interesting, and it's actually a buff to edged weapon duelists. Because one of the big reasons you go duelist is because you want to inflict injuries, but the edged weapon injuries are so much weaker than the blunt weapon injuries. Crushed ribs, crushed finger, broken elbow, and the big daddy of all injuries, cracked skull and severe concussion, don't hold a candle to these edged weapon injuries. They're still useful. Stabbed guts is 30% hit points. Grazed kidney is 50% hit points. Deep chest cut is fatigue and hit points. Brain damage. I think this was important because in terms of the injuries, the blunt weapon injuries are just head and shoulders, without debate, better than the edged weapon injuries. And they still are, but the gap is a little smaller now, so that's a nice little buff. Changed range defense level ups to range from 2 to 4, up from 1 to 3. That's nice. Only affects characters generated, so it's not retroactive, that's cool. And this then, to me, counteracts the anticipation buff a little bit, because this makes me less likely to want to take, or to feel like I need anticipation, because it's going to be easier to get that 20 range defense. With this extra, maybe I can then justify getting all my ranged guys up to 30 range defense. But again, I'll have to try. How much more we got to go? I'm getting out of breath. Change damage of scimitar to 40 to 45, up from 35 to 45. That's nice. The scimitar was a little weak. I like that swords are getting love. Swords, for me, really only held a place as tank weapons using riposte. Their lack of usefulness versus armor was a bit meh. That's nice. The change in damage of three-headed flail from 30 to 75. That's nice. Oh, baby. See, three-handed flail was a bit of a gimmick weapon. Zidane, legendary, thanks for the follow, my man. Sorry guys, I just need to blow my nose for a sec. But so is that only the three-headed flail or the normal flail as well? So if I'm thinking about how I'm going to build my placeholder lads, just so you know, when I say placeholder, I mean a brother in the early game who's got crap skills, but he's good enough to hold the sword or whatever, just so I can get a body on the front line to build my economy to start hiring and firing and searching for goodies. This now almost makes me think that you can make an argument for, instead of making them axe specialists, you make them flail specialists. Because in the first 250 days, the main source of your economy is brigand hunting. And flail specialists are incredible at brigand hunting, especially because you get the guaranteed headshots. The thing is then, when I am guaranteed headhunting, I'm using the active flail ability, which gives 100% headshot, which then, you know, doesn't really... Actually, no, wait, it does! Because on your first attack, you use the second skill to guarantee hit to the head. You can then use the normal attack on the second attack for 2 guaranteed headshots. Okay, Headhunter just became a lot better for flails. Interesting. The key thing, which I understand they couldn't change because it would be OP, would be the three-headed flail can't apply morale break on every hit. Wolfster, did it say anything about quick hands? Did it say if you use quick hands you don't lose the buff? Because resets after hit connects or you miss your attack. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they don't add it, but I wouldn't be surprised if using quick hands makes you lose the buff. Well, fuck it, in that case then, my replacement bros, maybe you don't even give them a weapon specialization. You just have them quick hands between an axe and a flail. Start the turn with a flail, active hit the head, quick hands to an axe for the execution hit. Because, assuming the axe hits, of course. Because even if the enemy has a helmet, the helmet will be damaged by the flail hit, and then especially if it's a high tier axe. That's great. I really like that. I'm looking forward to a mob. I just want to play the peasant mob. There's so many more interesting backgrounds to play. But it's the peasant mob is still my favorite background, and I can't wait to have a whole bunch of flail using peasants on the front line. Martin, I believe you only destroy the head if the execution triggers, which doesn't always trigger. There's some mechanic, I'm forgetting exactly how it works, because I'm in a cold medication fever dream right now. So that would be great then if you get someone who has fearsome. So what's the background of the trait? The executioner who always executes. I'm pretty sure that means that when you're killing Vita gangers, they then can't be raised because you've essentially cut their heads off. Bloodthirsty, yeah, thank you. Change damage to bullhook. A bit of a bullhook nerf. That is fine. I like that. Bullhooks were quite a ways the best two-handed weapons. I mean, I would never use the pole hammer because the bullhook is so much better. This also brings it a little closer to the two-handed axe. The Dane axe is one of my favorite two-handed weapons. It doesn't give you the other usefulness of axes, but those of you who've seen my shield breaker build know how much I love Dane axes. For those of you not familiar, a shield breaker is typically a light armor brother, but ideally heavy if he has the hit points. He starts the battle on the back line with a Dane axe. His job is to break shields in the front line to facilitate your high melee attack front line guys. Then he rotates out the front line once the front line is injured. He has quick hands, he has bags and belts, he can go to a shield, he has shield expertise. He can then hold up a front line. Very useful type of brother. I love that build. So that's fine. Efficiency of the pole hammer up a little bit for some extra armor damage. That's fine. I still don't see myself using pole hammer all that much. However, with the introduction of more of the two-handed weapons, it means that my two-handed specialists are going to get built by having their 1 square and 2 square variants in their inventory. Let's say it's a hammer guy. He'll have his warhammer he'll start the battle with. He'll have a pole hammer in his backpack, so that when he gets 2 damage to fight in the front line, he can then hide behind his bros and use the pole hammer. Same with great swords and pole swords, two-handed maces and pole maces, so on and so forth. Change damage of heavy javelin down from 40. They had to do that. The heavy javelin with the duelist perk was bonkers, so that's fair enough. Damage of heavy throwing axe down a bit. That's fine. Those heavy throwing weapons were incredible. Change living tree shield to regenerate by 10% of maximum durability each turn. I've never used to do that, I don't think, so that's nice. Oh, God. Voice. Sorry guys, I'm struggling with my voice here. I need a sip of chamomile tea. Changed undead trophy to double the wearer's resolve when defending against fear and mind control skills. No longer grant complete immunity. Okay, so that's a bit of a nerf to the undead trophy. Double the wearer's resolve, but that's fine. I mean, a typical brother who will wear that has 50 resolve, so he'll now have 100 resolve. A Hexen lowers enemies, so they'll cast Hex with a minus 35 buff, but then 65% chance to resolve, modified by the plus resolve from the bannerman. Let's assume it's plus 15 from the bannerman. So around 80% chance to resolve to resist a witch. That's fine. That's fine. Change surround mechanics to no longer count stunned characters or characters armed with ranged weapons towards surround bonus. That's nice. That's very, very nice. Helps your brother survive. And it's a bit of a nerf to guys who would tend to use Backstabber, but I was not a huge fan of Backstabber. Change zone of control mechanics for actors that are stunned or without skills to actually perform attacks of opportunity. Like if armed with a ranged weapon or no longer exert zone of control. That's something that had to happen. It was so stupid that if you stunned a brother and tried to move away... But hang on, if a stunned brother wouldn't have an attack of opportunity. Change zone of control mechanics for actors that are stunned or without skills to actually perform attacks of opportunity. Or without skills. I'll have to test that. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I was of the impression that a stunned enemy couldn't have a zone of control, but maybe I'm wrong. It's not very often that I'm moving away from a stunned enemy. A little nerf to daze, that's fair enough. I think they had to do that given how much more prevalent the blunt weapons maces are going to be. Change charm status effects to make the afflicted immune to some morale effects to avoid odd situations of characters fleeing after the charm is worn off. Okay. The increased sleeping effect can still be removed at any time. That's fine, that's not a big change. Change cat potion to be used on the world map and give 20 bonus to the duration of the next battle. Sweet. Lionheart, 20 bonus to resolve. It used to be 50, wasn't it? But it's just all the potions now for the duration of the next battle. Sorry guys, I'm going to try to mute before I cough. We're really struggling. These are ready to read. Effect duration. Change berserker mushrooms to be used on the world map and give 25 bonus to damage and melee. And reduce both melee and range defense by 15 duration of the next battle. Ooh, interesting. I like that. Using these no longer carries an additional risk of getting sick. The character still risks getting sick addicted to many potions. That's a nice buff to berserker mushrooms. I like that. Oh, damage in melee, of course, so you can't give it to your ranged guys. Melee defense minus 15. I'm still going to be using Berserker's Mushrooms a fair bit now. Changed Antidote to also give immunity to poison, duration of 3 turns. That's super needed. But what happened a lot was when you're fighting those thrice bedamned goblins, is you would use Antidote, then attack once, and then the very next attack that hits you reapplies a poison. Then you're like, then you just smash keyboard and hatred of goblins. That's nice. Change Potion of Knowledge. It's such a hard potion to craft and only have it last 2 days. Especially if you put it in a lowish level brother who then takes an injury or gets hurt or whatever. Then he has to heal up and he can't use it again, so that's nice. This is interesting. Change Geist to no longer have Anticipation perk, but instead have a perk of their own that increases both their melee and range defense by small amounts further away an attacker is. Damn. That's a nerf to whipping them down. I still think that whipping them down is going to be the best way to go, but now I can see my disposable guys or my indebted quick handsing between flail, axe, and whip. It's still going to be useful using the whip, and it's going to make, I think it's an indirect buff to, even if unintended, to fast adaptation. Because on a brother like my disposable bro, hitting Geists is so fucking hard. But now, whip and miss, whip again, whip again. I like this. A lot of these buffs I'm hearing is a buff to these disposable bros. And this is alleviating a lot of the concerns I have about the indebted start, because when I heard most of the guys are limited to level 7, I'm like, then why on earth would I ever play indebted over peasant mob? Correct, Emin, I would agree with that. So Geists already, typically, I wouldn't struggle to hit them with the fencing sword, but it's a nice little buff. Cradle Fits, use exclamation mark Discord. And I hope you're watching my Long War of the Chosen campaign. I've recorded an episode today. I'm going to upload a little bit later. Let's just say you had your first mission, and I'm glad we had you on the mission. Let's put it that way. Right, so change the tails of lindworms to also exert zone control. Oh. Here's something nobody ever said. Hey, let's buff the lindworm. Oh, fuck. Maybe it's not that bad, because I mean, still technically, you shouldn't be putting vulnerable guys in contact with lindworms at all. You should be putting tanks in contact, using shield wall, and your backline guys do all the work. And also, like, I mean, we did get to see how effective greatswords and bardishas are, because they can split and hit both parts of the lindworm. So Wolfster, if you can do it, try using a greatsword. I forget which VOD it is, but obviously the guy using the greatsword isn't a lot of threat, but he can double his damage output because using split hits both the tail and the head. Okay, changed trade caravan origin to only receive 66 of all renown, up from 50. That's nice. I mean, as we saw in the Damage Inc. playthrough, the 50% resound was pretty crippling. I suppose so conductive, but I doubt very much, and I hope they aren't patching the game and making changes to stop guys who are abusing mechanics, because I feel like that is a vanishingly small part of the player base. But still, good. Change starting renown of some other existing origins to become work with the new retinue feature. To better work with the new retinue feature. Okay, we'll have to just see how that works. Changed targeting icons for AoE skills to also show up on empty tiles, as to give a better idea of the area those skills can cover. That's nice. So, it's not written here, but what I desperately hope this will allow me to do is to use my swing with a greatsword without hitting an ally, because if you had your brother here and an enemy there, but no enemy there, and an ally next to him, if you want to use swing, you would have to hit your own ally. So what I'm hoping is this means that I can attack the two enemies and the empty square. Please overhype it. Let that be what it means. Okay. Changed hotkeys for showing hiding footprints on the world map. F key, so as to avoid players accidentally hiding footprints. Tab key, that hardly ever happened. Changed autosaves when leaving towns in Iron Man mode to be faster. That's good. AI turns to be faster with multiple characters, do nothing but move one after the other. Awesome. That's great when you are fighting hordes of zombies. Changed AI to perform better in various situations. And lots and lots of minor things for the better. Well, that's a lovely thing they might have loved to write. Okay, and then just a bunch of fixes. Game speed for longer code. Potential crash, three-way fights. Temporary invisible Alps when getting knocked back and receiving damage at the same time. Crash when bleeding lindworms as they retreat from the map. I haven't seen a lot of this. The whole divide by the Kraken rising as bleeding angers when fighting it during the Undead Crisis. Can you imagine if the Obsidian Dagger allowed you to raise Kraken tentacles as zombie tentacles? It would be so stupid. Fixed fatigue cost reduction of named items not applying to reload skill of crossbow. Okay, that was pretty important. I like that. Fixed lunge skill, potentially moving a character into a tile they can't attack from. Huh? Oh, right, yes, with height disadvantage. Fair enough. Fixed riposte skill, sometimes not working against unhold. Okay, good. Fixed rare issue of armor and helmets not dropping even though they're named items which are guaranteed to drop. Thank Nuffle. Needed that. Fixed rare issue with the reset equipment after battle function losing items. Fixed wolf gained via event having incorrect stats. Fixed big game hunter contract potentially pointing to regions that need the lindworms. Okay, fair enough. Okay, those are all nice little quality of life fixes. I like these patch notes. These patch notes suggest to me that these developers have listened to beta testers. These are all very practical, hands-on changes. And I would expect nothing less from Overhype Studios. Love Overhype Studios. One of the best development studios ever. They're brilliant. And that's why I unreservedly and without hesitation buy the DLC with the Supporters Edition. Love these guys. Okay, friends, for those of you watching on YouTube, this is the end of the patch 1.4 review. Keep an eye on my vids. I'm going to try to release at least an hour or two every day. I was intending to do, I'm not kidding, 8 to 12 hours a day of Battle Brothers content, but then I got fucking sick. So until I get sick, you can expect 1 or 2 hours a day. But once I'm better, prepare your YouTube feed. I think what we'll do is we will do an initial run with the Indebted, which will be a largely experimentation run. And those won't be hour-long episodes. Those will just be straight VOD uploads. We'll do that for however long it takes until we feel like we've got our hands on DLC. After that, we'll then move to a different background, probably the peasants. I really want to try a peasant mob with all these new toys I can play with. And then that new playthrough will be 1 hour episode every day. And that's going to be a 1,000-day long campaign like the like Damage Inc., where I think I finally have enough knowledge and experience to complete each and every single one of the late game crisis. Handgunning peasants. That sounds expensive, man. Okay. Thanks for watching, everybody, and keep an eye on the YouTube feed.